Now, if you're anything like my students, I am sure that you're a little worried for your first multiple choice test. Don't worry, I have heard your cries for help and I am here to support you. Today, I'm going to go over 3 concepts that you will definitely see on your test. And as a bonus, I'll end the video with some honorable mentions, which, to be honest, will also probably have a good chance of being on that dreaded Unit 1 test. First up is one of the trickier concepts, and that is scale and scale of analysis. Remember, when we're talking about scale, we're referring to the distance on a map in relationship to the Earth's surface, while scale of analysis is referring to how information is being organized. Now, in this video, I'm not going to do an in-depth review of all the different concepts. If you like, you can watch my Unit 1 summary video or the topic videos on YouTube. Instead, I'm going to focus on how these concepts may appear on your test. All right, now you'll often see scale and scale of analysis questions appear on your test in a variety of different ways. One of them could be as simple as identify the scale or identify the scale of analysis being shown in the map. When you see questions like this, always make sure to read the title of the image or map and any other context clues that are provided, such as the source or key. For instance, here I can see that the scale is national, but the scale of analysis is local, which you can get from looking at the title and the key of the map. Now, I want you to also be on the lookout for scale and scale of analysis questions to pop on your test in questions dealing with other topics. This is one of the areas where actually my students always get tripped up on. For instance, which of the following best explains how geographic data can influence international policies? Remember, when you are taking a test, you're going to be stressed. And when you are stressed, you are more likely to make easy mistakes and miss things. My students often would miss the part of this question that refers to international policies. When taking your test, don't make that mistake. If you see a question referencing a particular scale, underline it, circle it, then go down to the answers and make sure you find an answer that matches the scale of the question. When looking through these different answers, we can see that all these answers could be true statements, but only E connects to the international policies of the question. So E would be the correct answer. If you are still worried about scale and scale of analysis, you can head on over to my ultimate review packet. In there, you'll find an exclusive practice video of me reviewing these concepts, a practice quiz, and a video of me taking the quiz and explaining all of the answers to the different questions. All right, up next is maps. Now, I realize that this is pretty vague, but be ready to answer questions that have you reading and interpreting data on a map. For instance, which of the following statements accurately describes the spatial pattern of life expectancy in the data above? The important thing to remember when you see a question like this is not to panic. Breathe, slow down, and spend time looking at the image or map. Take these questions one answer at a time. If you notice that part of an answer is not true, it probably means you should consider a different answer. For instance, I can see that A says life expectancy is consistently high across all regions in the United States, which when looking at the map, I can see is clearly not true. So I can cross A off and move to other answers. Also, make sure you are on the lookout for possible answers that could be correct, but do not directly connect back to the data or question that you're looking at. For example, B says that the highest life expectancy is found in rural areas, while urban areas generally have a lower life expectancy. This could be true or it could not be true, but it doesn't really matter because there are other answers that do a lot better of job at describing the spatial pattern of life expectancy and connect better with the map and the question. To be honest, the only way to know if you have this skill down is to practice. So I created a map quiz in my ultimate review packet that has you look at different types of maps and answer questions that have you read, interpret, and explain what you are seeing. I also added another breakdown video of me taking the quiz and walking you through my thought process while also showing you different tricks you can use on your own test. And before we go on to the next concept, I also want to remind you that when it comes to maps, you may also see a couple of questions that connect back to map projections. When studying map projections, make sure you focus on the main characteristics of the projections you talked about in class and review how distortion impacts each projection. Remember, the fundamental problem that all maps face is distortion. Now, for my last prediction, I think that you will see questions asking about the different types of regions. And to be honest, for me, I usually have regions appear on my FRQs. Now, if you're one of my students watching this, maybe that's a hint, or maybe because I'm making this video, I'm going to change it up this year. Only time will tell. So I would definitely make sure that you spend some time studying formal, functional, and perceptual region. Remember when answering questions about the regions to always look at the data, scenario, image, or map that is being provided. Depending on the scale and the context of the question, the type of the region could vary. Oftentimes you'll have prior knowledge that can help you with these questions, which is great, but make sure you're also focusing on exactly what the question is asking. For instance, the Midwest in the United States is commonly identified as a region based on shared cultural values, agricultural traditions, and historical identity. Which region is most likely being described? Now, in the past, I have had students in my class read a question like this too fast. They see that they need to identify a region and they see a map of the United States, so they put down formal for the answer. But notice that this question is asking about the Midwest in the United States, which would make it a perceptual region. Again, you always need to make sure that you read questions carefully. Generally speaking, if a scenario, map, question, or image is revolving around any economic activity, transportation system, or things dealing with communication, it's most likely a functional region. And if the scenario or question uses any of the cardinal directions, it's most likely a perceptual region. If you want more help reviewing the different regions, you can check out these videos, which will review everything you need to know. And if you need even more help, you can check out my Discord server for free and join the over 20,000 students reviewing right now. All right, now comes the time for some honorable mentions, which, to be fair, I do still think that these concepts have a high likelihood of appearing on your test. First up is environmental determinism and possibilism. Make sure you don't mix these up, and definitely make sure that you can connect them to a real-world scenario. Another concept I want to mention is spatial concepts, such as distance decay, time-space compression, or absolute and relative location. With any question dealing with spatial concepts, make sure you look closely to identify exactly what the question is seeking. You definitely don't want to mix up these terms. I know for my students in my class, sometimes students rush through and will mix up absolute and relative location, or they'll mix up distance decay and time-space compression, or even possibly absolute and relative distance with absolute and relative location. Lastly, make sure you are familiar with the different geospatial technologies, such as remote sensing, GIS, and GPS. And don't forget about quantitative and qualitative data. And of course, most importantly, make sure you talk with your teacher about what to study. Review your class vocab, look over your notes, and see what your class focused on. After all, your teacher's the one creating your test and will likely base it off of what you talked about in class. All right, that's all the time for today. Make sure you let me know what concepts were on your tests and if I got anything right. Remember, if you do need any help studying, you can watch my Unit 1 review video and subscribe to the Mr. Sinn channel to get updated videos throughout the whole school year. As always, I'm Mr. Sinn. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time online.